The Forgotten Refuge, a haunting journey. The drive to the outskirts of the city was long and winding, the road growing narrower and more desolate with each passing mile. Valeria's heart pounded with a mix of anticipation and dread as she navigated the unfamiliar terrain. The address she had found in Lucia's diary led her to an abandoned orphanage, a place that had once been a refuge for children, but now stood as a haunting relic of the past. As Valeria approached the orphanage, the sight of the decaying building sent a shiver down her spine. Its windows were shattered, the walls covered in graffiti, and the overgrown weeds encroached upon the crumbling facade. The air was thick with the scent of decay and neglect, and a sense of foreboding hung in the atmosphere. Determined to uncover the truth, Valeria parked her car a safe distance away and approached the orphanage on foot. She pushed open the creaking front gate, the rusted metal groaning in protest. Each step she took was slow and deliberate, the crunch of gravel underfoot echoing in the eerie silence. The entrance door to the orphanage hung loosely on its hinges, barely attached to the frame. Valeria hesitated for a moment, then summoned her courage and stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit by the weak sunlight filtering through the broken windows, casting long shadows that seemed to dance on the walls. Dust motes floated in the air, disturbed by her presence. The floor was littered with debris, broken furniture, discarded toys, and remnants of a life that had long since faded away. Valeria's footsteps echoed through the empty halls, each sound amplified by the stillness. She made her way through the orphanage, guided by the directions she had pieced together from Lucia's diary. The entries had hinted at a hidden room where important files were kept, documents that could reveal the dark secrets of the orphanage's past. As she ventured deeper into the building, the air grew colder, and an oppressive silence enveloped her. Valeria's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing faded photographs of children who had once lived there, their innocent faces now haunting reminders of a forgotten time. Finally, she reached a narrow corridor at the back of the orphanage. The walls were lined with filing cabinets, their drawers rusted shut. Valeria's heart raced as she examined each cabinet, her fingers brushing away layers of dust. She tugged at a drawer, but it refused to budge. Frustration mounted, but she couldn't give up now. With a determined grunt, Valeria applied more force, and the drawer finally gave way, screeching open. Inside, she found a collection of old files, their edges yellowed with age. She carefully lifted the documents, her eyes scanning the pages for any clues. Her breath caught as she uncovered a series of reports detailing experiments conducted on the orphanage's children. The language was clinical and detached, describing procedures that chilled her to the bone. The files spoke of mind control, behavior modification, and the use of vulnerable children as test subjects. One file in particular drew her attention. It contained photographs and notes about a young girl named Lucia Mendez. The reports detailed her experiences, the tests she had undergone, and the growing paranoia that had consumed her. Valeria's heart ached as she read about Lucia's suffering, the fear that had haunted her every waking moment. As Valeria delved deeper into the files, she discovered references to a shadowy figure behind the experiments, a man named Hector Salgado. The documents hinted at his involvement, but the details were vague, obscured by time and secrecy. The sound of footsteps echoed through the corridor, snapping Valeria out of her reverie. Her heart pounded in her chest as she turned off her flashlight and pressed herself against the wall, straining to listen. The footsteps grew louder, more deliberate, and she knew she wasn't alone. Panic surged within her, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had to find a way out, but the narrow corridor offered no escape. Her mind raced, searching for options. As the footsteps drew nearer, Valeria spotted a door at the end of the hallway, partially concealed by a tattered curtain. She made a split-second decision and darted towards it, hoping it would lead to safety. Her fingers fumbled with the doorknob, but it refused to turn. Desperation clawed at her as she pulled harder, willing the door to open. Just as she was about to give up, the door finally yielded and she slipped inside, closing it quietly behind her. The room was small and dark, filled with old furniture covered in dust. Valeria's breath came in shallow gasps as she listened to the footsteps pass by the door, heading deeper into the orphanage. She waited in tense silence, her heart pounding in her ears. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps faded into the distance and the oppressive silence returned. Valeria knew she had to act quickly. She couldn't risk being discovered. Gathering her courage, she crept out of the room and retraced her steps through the orphanage, clutching the files tightly to her chest. The journey back to her car felt like a race against time, each moment filled with the fear of being caught. As she finally reached her car and drove away from the orphanage, a sense of relief washed over her. But the files in her possession were a stark reminder of the dark secrets she had uncovered. The orphanage had been a place of refuge for children, but it had also been a site of unspeakable horrors. Valeria knew that her investigation had only scratched the surface. There were more questions than answers, and the danger was far from over. But she was determined to continue, to uncover the truth and bring justice to Lucia Mendez and the other victims. The road ahead was fraught with peril, but Valeria Rivas was resolute. She would not be silenced. The forgotten refuge had given her a glimpse into the darkness, and now she would shine a light on the secrets that had been buried for so long.